The sprawling metropolis of Coriolis Prime, hub of the Galactic Consortium, was a place of endless wonders and intrigue. Yet, nothing in its history had prepared its citizens for the shocking announcement that lit up every holographic feed and communication terminal across the galaxy. Zara Thal, a fiercely independent aristocrat from the enigmatic Rinveris species, had declared herself pregnant. But it wasn't the pregnancy itself that sent waves of disbelief rippling across star systems. It was the identity of the father, Eli Mason, a human cowboy from Earth's rustic frontier colonies. Eli, known for his disarming grin and uncanny ability to wrangle alien beasts, had no idea he was about to become the most talked-about man in the galaxy. While he lounged on the sun-dappled plains of Dustar Vive, tinkering with the engine of his skimmer bike, a local courier delivered a holographic missive emblazoned with Zara's unmistakable seal. "Congratulations, Eli Mason," the courier said, smirking. "You're about to make history." Eli scratched his head, his Stetson tilted just so as he activated the hologram. Zara's elegant figure materialized, her silver eyes locking onto his, even through the flickering projection. "Eli," she began, her voice a mix of exasperation and warmth, "you've done it again. Somehow, in the middle of all your swagger and recklessness, you've managed the impossible. I'm pregnant, and you're the father." The message ended abruptly, leaving Eli staring at the fading image. The wind whistled across the plains as he muttered, "Well, I'll be damned." 3 days later, Zara arrived on Dustar Vive aboard a sleek Rinverian cruiser that gleamed like polished obsidian against the planet's dusty horizon. Eli stood at the spaceport, his hands shoved into the pockets of his worn leather duster, waiting as the ramp lowered. When Zara descended, her presence immediately commanded attention. Her tall, lithe frame moved with regal confidence, her silver hair catching the light like a cascade of molten metal. She wore a fitted Rinverian diplomatic suit, but her expression was anything but formal. Her piercing gaze found Eli, and she marched toward him with purpose. "Eli Mason," she said, her voice sharp, "you're an enigma wrapped in chaos." He tipped his hat. "Nice to see you too, Zara." She stopped in front of him, her annoyance giving way to something softer as she looked into his deep brown eyes. "Do you realize the storm you've caused? My people are in an uproar, and the consortium is calling for an inquiry. They're all asking the same question. How could a human, how could you, manage to get a Rinverian pregnant?" Eli shrugged, his grin crooked. "Didn't know there was a rulebook. You want me to apologize for biology, or can we just enjoy the miracle?" Zara's lips twitched, almost forming a smile. "You're impossible." "And yet, here we are," Eli replied, gesturing to a nearby skimmer bike. "Come on, let's talk somewhere quieter." They rode to one of Dustar's vast mesas, where the views stretched out endlessly, the twin suns painting the landscape in hues of gold and crimson. As they sat under the shade of a massive rock formation, Zara finally let down her guard. "Eli," she said, her voice softer now, "this isn't just about us. This child is a first, a bridge between two species. The galaxy won't see it as a personal matter. They'll see it as a symbol." Eli leaned back against the rock, his Stetson tilted to shield his eyes from the sun. "Well, maybe that's what the galaxy needs, a reminder that we're all a lot closer than we think." Zara studied him, her sharp features softened by the light. "You really believe that, don't you?" He turned to her, his grin replaced by a rare seriousness. "Yeah, I do. But it's not about what I believe, Zara. It's about what we do next." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Zara reached over, resting a hand on his. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Eli nodded, his grip firm and reassuring. "Together it is, then." As the suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with stars, they sat side by side, two unlikely partners preparing to face a galaxy that was about to change forever. The revelation of Zara Thal's pregnancy spread through the galaxy like wildfire, igniting debates, outrage, and fascination across the consortium's 100-member worlds. Newsfeeds broadcast endless speculation about the biological impossibility of a human and a Rinverian conceiving a child. Scientists, diplomats, and politicians scrambled to weigh in, while the public divided into factions. Those who celebrated the event as a miraculous breakthrough, and those who saw it as an affront to galactic order. On Zara's home planet of Rinveris Prime, the ruling council convened an emergency session. The chamber, a grand hall of shimmering crystalline light, buzzed with tension as dignitaries argued over the implications of the pregnancy. "This is a violation of our genetic sanctity," declared Councillor Threx, his pale blue skin flushed with anger. "Rinvarians have maintained our purity for millennia. This child threatens the very fabric of our society." "Enough." Zara's father, Lord Kalar Thal, cut through the noise, his deep voice reverberating through the hall. Though his face remained impassive, his silver eyes betrayed a storm of emotions. "We are not here to pass judgment. The fact remains, my daughter carries a child. That child is Rinvarian, and it is our duty to protect her and her family." "Family?" Threx spat. "You mean the human who sired this abomination? A cowboy, no less." Kalar's gaze hardened. "That cowboy, as you call him, is more than most of us here. He has shown courage, adaptability, and integrity, qualities we could use more of in this council." Meanwhile, on Dustar Vive, Eli Mason's life had taken an equally chaotic turn. The normally quiet frontier planet was now a hotspot for reporters, scientists, and curious onlookers. Eli couldn't walk into town without being swarmed by people demanding interviews or offering to conduct genetic research. The sudden attention grated on him, but he handled it with his trademark humor. "Eli," said Trix, the owner of the local saloon, as she poured him a drink, "you've got the galaxy's eyes on you, and all you care about is your skimmer bike." Eli tipped his hat with a grin. "Well, Trix, fixing that bike keeps me sane. Can't say the same about all the gawkers outside." Trix chuckled. "You ever think about what this means? A kid that's part human, part Rinvarian. That's history." Eli's smile faded slightly as he stared into his drink. "I think about it every minute, but right now, it's not about making history. It's about keeping Zara and that kid safe." The tension came to a head when a delegation from Rinvaris arrived on Dustar, led by Zara's father. The sleek, black, Rinvarian ship landed on the outskirts of Eli's ranch, its imposing figure a stark contrast to the dusty, sun-baked landscape. Eli stood outside, his duster flapping in the warm breeze as the delegation disembarked. Zara was the first to step out, her silver hair catching the light. Behind her, Kalar Thal followed, flanked by advisors and guards. Kalar approached Eli, his expression unreadable. "Eli Mason," he said, his tone formal. "You are different from what I expected." Eli tipped his hat. "And you're exactly what I expected. A man who loves his daughter enough to cross half the galaxy to make sure she's okay." Kalar's stern demeanor softened, if only slightly. "Zara speaks highly of you. That alone earns you some of my respect." Zara stepped between them, her gaze darting between her father and Eli. "Can we skip the posturing? There are more important things to discuss." Kalar nodded. "Indeed. The council has agreed to recognize your child, but there are conditions." Eli crossed his arms. "Conditions?" "First, the child must be raised with Rinvarian guidance to ensure they understand their heritage and responsibilities." Eli raised an eyebrow. "And second," Kalar hesitated. "Second, you must prove yourself capable of protecting them. The Syndicate has already shown interest in exploiting this situation, and others will follow." Eli met Kalar's gaze, his voice steady. "I've protected myself, Zara, and my people from worse than the Syndicate. If they come, they'll regret it." Zara placed a hand on Eli's arm. "We'll face it together." The warning about the Syndicate proved prescient. Days after Kalar's visit, a cloaked ship was detected entering Dustar's atmosphere. The local authorities, unprepared for such a threat, called on Eli and Zara for help. Eli stood on the porch of his ranch, loading his plasma rifle as Zara adjusted the settings on a sleek Rinvarian combat drone. "They really don't quit, do they?" Eli muttered. Zara smirked. "That's the Syndicate for you, persistent, greedy, and utterly predictable. They're about to get a lesson in frontier hospitality," Eli said, his grin sharp. The Syndicate operatives, dressed in dark tactical armor, approached under the cover of night. They expected an easy target, a cowboy with primitive weapons and an unarmed woman. What they found was a formidable duo who had anticipated their every move. Eli's traps, a mix of human ingenuity and Rinvarian tech, sprang into action as the operatives breached the ranch's perimeter. Explosives rigged to fence posts sent the first wave scattering, while automated turrets picked off stragglers. Zara, positioned on the roof with a sniper rifle, provided cover fire as Eli moved through the chaos, taking down operatives with precision. His years of herding unpredictable alien creatures gave him an edge. his instincts honed for tracking and outsmarting threats. As the battle raged, the syndicate leader, a towering alien named Krylos, stepped forward, his voice booming. "Surrender the woman and the child and we'll spare your lives." Eli stepped out from cover, his rifle aimed at Krylos. "You picked the wrong ranch, partner?" Krylos laughed. "A human cowboy thinks he can stop me?" Eli smirked. "Not just a cowboy with backup." On cue, Zara activated the combat drone, its energy cannons firing with devastating accuracy. Krylos's forces scattered under the onslaught, and within minutes, the syndicate operatives were in full retreat. As the dust settled, Zara climbed down from the roof, her silver eyes bright with triumph. "Not bad for a cowboy," Eli grinned, tipping his hat. "Not bad for a Renverian rebel." The two stood together, watching as the last syndicate ship disappeared into the night sky. Zara reached for Eli's hand, her voice quieter now. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" Eli nodded. "Yep, but whatever comes next, we'll handle it. One step at a time." As they returned to the ranch, the stars above seemed a little brighter. They had faced down one of the galaxy's greatest threats together, and for the first time, Eli truly felt the weight of what they were building, a family, against all odds. The Syndicate's failed attack on Dustar Vive didn't go unnoticed. News of the battle spread across the galaxy, turning Eli Mason and Zara Thal into reluctant heroes. While some praised their resilience, others whispered darkly about the dangers of their unborn child. A hybrid with the potential to unite or disrupt two powerful species. In the capital city of Coriolis Prime, the Galactic Consortium Council convened an emergency session to discuss the implications of the Dustar attack. The chamber, a massive circular room with holographic displays shimmering above each delegate, buzzed with tension. "We must address the elephant in the room," barked Councillor Meraxis, a Renverian hardliner. His pale blue skin flushed darker with anger as he slammed a fist onto his console. "This pregnancy is not just an anomaly, it's a threat to the balance of power in the galaxy. The Syndicate attack proves it." "And yet they failed," retorted Ambassador Lauren, a human diplomat. Eli Mason and Zara Thal defended themselves and their unborn child against overwhelming odds. Instead of condemnation, we should offer them protection. A murmur swept through the council as the two sides clashed. Meanwhile, back on Dustar, Eli and Zara prepared for what they knew was coming next, the fallout from the attack. Eli sat on the porch of his ranch, his boots propped up on the railing as he polished his plasma rifle. Zara paced nearby, her elegant form glowing softly under the evening light of Dustar's twin suns. "We're at the center of a storm," Zara said, her voice tight with frustration. "The consortium will want to control us, the Syndicate will try again, and my own people," she broke off, her silver eyes narrowing. "They'll either support us or turn on us." Eli glanced at her, his expression calm but resolute. "You're not in this alone, Zara. We'll take whatever comes." She stopped pacing, her gaze softening as she looked at him. "Do you ever doubt yourself, Eli?" He shrugged, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Plenty of times. But I figure doubt just means you're thinking things through. Does it mean you stop moving forward?" Her lips twitched in a faint smile, and she stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "How do you make it sound so simple?" "Guess I'm just a simple guy," he said, tipping his hat. That night, as they sat around a small fire, Zara opened up about her fears. She spoke of the pressure from her father, Lord Cowler Thal, who was fighting to protect them in the Renverian council chambers. She admitted her uncertainty about the child growing inside her, a child that symbolized hope for some and danger for others. Eli listened quietly, his rough hands turning a small piece of wood over the flames. When she finished, he leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "You're the strongest person I've ever met, Zara. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." The weight in her chest lifted slightly, and she nodded, leaning her head against his shoulder as the fire crackled between them. Days later, a Renverian emissary arrived on Dustar, his arrival as ominous as it was formal. Envoy Teralis, clad in the flowing silver robes of his station, stepped off his ship with an air of authority. Eli and Zara met him at the ranch, flanked by local Dustarian officials and Zara's father, Lord Cowler Thal. Teralis wasted no time. "The Renverian Council has reached a decision. The child will be brought to Renveris upon birth to ensure their upbringing aligns with our traditions." Eli's brow furrowed as he crossed his arms. You're saying we don't get a say in how to raise our own kid? This is not a matter of personal preference, Tyrolus replied coolly. The child represents the merging of two species. Its existence carries political, social, and scientific ramifications that neither you nor Zara can fully comprehend. Zara stepped forward, her voice sharp and unwavering. You assume we lack the wisdom to guide our child. That assumption is wrong. This child will not be a tool for political games. Cowler, standing beside her, added his weight to her words. The council has no right to dictate this family's future. I stand with my daughter. Tyrolus's expression remained stoic, but his tone grew colder. If you refuse, you risk alienating not only the Renvarian Council, but also potential allies in the consortium. Eli stepped forward, his presence commanding despite the simplicity of his attire. Listen here, partner, he said, his drawl cutting through the tension like a blade. You can dress it up however you want, but you're talking about taking a kid away from their parents. That ain't gonna fly. Not with me, and sure as hell not with Zara. For the first time, Tyrolus hesitated. The conviction in Eli's voice was undeniable, and the murmurs of agreement from the Dustarian officials only added to the weight of his words. Later that evening, Zara sat with her father in the ranch's main room, the glow of Dustar's twin moons streaming through the windows. Cowler's expression was grave as he spoke. The council will not let this go, Zara. You've chosen a difficult path. She met his gaze, her silver eyes fierce. It's the only path worth taking. Meanwhile, Eli worked outside, reinforcing the ranch's defenses. As he secured the perimeter, he glanced up at the starry sky, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The syndicate was still out there, and now the Renvarian Council posed a new threat. But even as the challenges mounted, he felt a deep sense of purpose. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for a future. The night ended with Eli and Zara standing side by side on the porch, watching the horizon. Zara reached for his hand, her voice quiet but firm. Do you think we can really do this, Eli? He squeezed her hand, his gaze steady. I don't think, I know. As the stars above shimmered with endless possibilities, the two of them prepared for the battles yet to come, united by love, defiance, and the unwavering belief that their child's future was worth fighting for. The quiet of Dustar V was deceptive. Beneath its serene twin moons, a storm brewed, one that Eli Mason and Zara Thal knew would test them both. Following the ultimatum from the Renvarian Council, tensions between the couple and Zara's people had escalated. Meanwhile, the syndicate, undeterred by their prior defeat, had been regrouping. Eli had spent days fortifying the ranch. With Zara's help, they installed a network of advanced defenses, blending his frontier ingenuity with her Renvarian technology. The once humble ranch was now a fortress, its perimeter lined with automated turrets, energy barriers, and concealed traps. Still, Eli's instincts told him it wouldn't be enough. Zara approached him as he worked on calibrating a turret. She wore her sleek combat suit, its silver lines shimmering in the low light. They'll come soon, she said, her tone firm but laced with worry. The syndicate doesn't fail twice without making an example. Eli adjusted his hat, wiping the sweat from his brow. Let 'em come. They don't scare me. Zara crossed her arms, studying him. You can't charm your way out of this one, Cowboy. He smirked. Who said I was planning to? The next night, the syndicate struck. Their ships appeared on the horizon like shadows against the stars, sleek and predatory. Dustar's defense grid detected them early, giving Eli, Zara, and their allies precious moments to prepare. Eli stood at the ranch's entrance, his plasma rifles slung over his shoulder. Zara joined him, her blade glowing faintly in her hand. We hold the line here, he said, his voice steady. No matter what. The first wave hit hard. Syndicate operatives poured from their dropships, their black armor glinting as they moved with military precision. The automated defenses sprang to life, cutting down the front lines with searing blasts of energy. Still, the syndicate pressed forward, determined to breach the ranch. Eli's rifle fired with practiced precision, each shot finding its mark. Zara moved like a shadow, her blade a blur as she cut through the enemy ranks. Despite the chaos, their teamwork was seamless, a testament to the bond they had forged. When a group of syndicate operatives attempted to flank the ranch, Eli spotted them and radioed Zara. East side, behind the silo. On it, she replied. Eli covered her advance, taking out the operatives who tried to pin her down. Zara reached the silo and dispatched the flanking force with swift, calculated strikes. When the area was secure, she looked back at Eli, her silver eyes meeting his across the battlefield. "Not bad for a cowboy," she called. "Not bad for a Rinvarian rebel," he shot back. As the battle raged, reinforcements arrived, not for the syndicate, but for Eli and Zara. Lord Thal, Zara's father, had defied the council's orders and brought a contingent of loyal Rinvarian soldiers to aid them. Kalar approached Eli amidst the chaos, his expression grim. "You were right, Mason. The syndicate won't stop until they're utterly destroyed." Eli nodded, shaking Kalar's hand. "Glad you're here. Let's finish this." With the combined forces of Dustar's defenders and Kalar's soldiers, the tide began to turn. The syndicate's operatives faltered under the relentless counterattack, their confidence shaken. The syndicate commander, Krylos, a towering alien with a cybernetic arm, emerged from the fray. His booming voice cut through the battlefield. "You think you can defy us? This is only the beginning." Eli stepped forward, his rifle aimed squarely at Krylos. "Big talk for a guy about to lose." Krylos sneered. "We'll see about that, human." The two clashed in a brutal fight. Eli's agility and quick thinking pitted against Krylos's brute strength. Zara joined the fray, her blade flashing as she struck at Krylos's defenses. Together they overwhelmed him, delivering the final blow that sent the syndicate commander to his knees. As Krylos's forces retreated, the battlefield fell silent, save for the hum of Dustar's defenses. The syndicate had been defeated. For now. Chapter 8. Reckoning and Resolution. The morning after the battle, the ranch was a scene of quiet activity. Dustarian workers and Rinvarian soldiers worked side by side to repair the damage. Eli, bruised but unbowed, sat on the porch, sipping a cup of strong black coffee. Zara joined him, her combat suit exchanged for a simple tunic and leggings. "You all right?" she asked, sitting beside him. He grinned, though it was tinged with exhaustion. "Been through worse. How about you?" She nodded, her silver eyes scanning the horizon. "I'm fine, but this isn't over. The syndicate will regroup, and the council, they won't let my father's defiance go unchallenged." Eli leaned back, his gaze steady. "Let 'em come. We've got more fight in us." Later that day, Kalar called a meeting. In the ranch's main hall, he addressed Eli, Zara, and their closest allies. "The council demands answers," he said. "They want to bring the child to Rinvaris, claiming it's for their protection." Zara's jaw tightened. "And you told them no?" "I did," Kalar replied, "but they won't take no for an answer. We need a long-term solution." Eli stood, his voice calm but firm. "We make it clear that this ranch is a line in the sand. Zara and I are raising this kid here with our people, our way. Anyone who tries to interfere is going to regret it." Kalar regarded Eli for a moment before nodding. "Very well, but understand this. By defying the council, you make powerful enemies." Eli met his gaze without flinching. "We've already got plenty of those. What's a few more?" As the days passed, life on the ranch returned to a semblance of normalcy. Zara took on more of the preparations for their child, working with Dustarian and Rinvarian healers to ensure a safe delivery. Eli continued to reinforce the ranch, his focus unyielding. One evening as they sat under the stars, Zara spoke quietly. "Do you ever think about what this child will mean to the galaxy?" Eli nodded, his arm around her shoulders. "Yeah, I think about it a lot. But more than that, I think about what they'll mean to us. That's what matters." She leaned into him, her voice soft. "You're not just a cowboy, Eli Mason. You're something much more." He smiled, pressing a kiss to her temple. "And you're not just a rebel, Zara Thal. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." As they sat together watching the stars, they knew the fight wasn't over. But for the first time, they felt ready to face whatever came next, together as a family. The ranch on Dustar Viv had become a symbol of resistance, unity, and defiance. Its quiet fields and towering mesas concealed a brewing storm as forces from across the galaxy prepared to converge. The Syndicate, humiliated by their recent defeat, had doubled their efforts, amassing troops and resources for a decisive strike. Meanwhile, the Rinvarian Council, angered by Lord Thal's defiance and Zara's refusal to submit, moved to take matters into their own hands. For Eli Mason and Zara Thal, the quiet moments had become rare. Every day was a flurry of activity, reinforcing defenses, coordinating with allies, and preparing for the arrival of their child. But as the tensions mounted, Zara could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting the ranch in hues of gold and crimson, Zara found Eli working on the perimeter defenses. His hands moved deftly over a turret's control panel, his focus unwavering. "You haven't slept," she said, leaning against the fence. Eli glanced at her, his grin faint but warm. "Neither have you." She approached him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Eli, this fight, it's not just about us anymore. This child, our child, has become a symbol. The Syndicate wants to exploit that, and the Council wants to control it." He straightened, wiping his hands on a rag before resting them on her shoulders. "I know, and we'll face them, Zara. All of them. But not because of what they think this kid represents. We'll do it because they're ours, and nobody has the right to take that away." Her lips twitched into a small smile, and she leaned her forehead against his. "You make it sound so simple." "Sometimes it is," he said softly. The next day, their suspicions were confirmed when their scanners detected multiple incoming ships. Two fleets, arriving from opposite ends of Dustar's atmosphere, were on a collision course with the ranch. The Syndicate had come to take the child by force, and the Rinvarian Council had deployed an envoy with orders to bring Zara and Eli to heel. Eli stood on the porch, his rifle slung over his shoulder, as the first ships appeared on the horizon. Beside him, Zara donned her combat gear, her blade gleaming in the sunlight. Kaller joined them, his expression grim. "This is it," Kaller said. "The Council's envoy will demand your surrender, but the Syndicate won't wait for diplomacy." Eli smirked. "Good thing I've never been much for diplomacy." The first ship to land was a sleek Rinvarian craft, its polished surface reflecting the dusty plains. From it emerged Envoy Teralis, flanked by a contingent of soldiers. The Syndicate ships, less elegant but no less imposing, hovered ominously in the distance, waiting for their moment to strike. Teralis approached, his demeanor as cold as ever. "Eli Mason, Zara Thal, you have defied the Council long enough. Surrender yourselves and the child, and we may yet avoid bloodshed." Eli stepped forward, his gaze steady. "You're wasting your breath, Teralis. We're not giving you anything." Zara crossed her arms, her voice sharp. "This isn't about avoiding bloodshed, it's about control. And you won't find it here." Before Teralis could respond, the Syndicate made their move. Dropships descended rapidly, disgorging waves of heavily armed operatives who opened fire without hesitation. The envoy scrambled for cover, and the Rinvarian soldiers, caught off guard, found themselves fighting alongside the ranch's defenders. Eli shouted orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Hold the line! Protect the house!" Zara moved like a shadow through the battlefield, her blade flashing as she took down Syndicate operatives with ruthless precision. Eli provided cover fire, his plasma rifle crackling with each shot. Kaller's soldiers rallied, their discipline and training turning the tide in key skirmishes. The Syndicate's leader, Krylos, emerged from the fray, his massive form cutting through the chaos like a juggernaut. His cybernetic arm glowed with destructive energy as he advanced on the ranch, flanked by his elite guard. The battle reached its peak as Krylos stormed the ranch's perimeter. Eli and Zara intercepted him at the gates, their movements perfectly synchronized. Krylos sneered, his voice a growl. "You think two of you can stop me?" Eli smirked, leveling his rifle. "Two's all we need." Krylos lunged, his cybernetic arms smashing into the ground where Eli had stood moments before. Zara darted in, her blade slicing through his guard with precision. Krylos retaliated with a swing that sent her sprawling, but Eli was there to cover her, his shots forcing the towering alien back. The fight was brutal, the air thick with the sound of clashing metal and the hiss of plasma. As Krylos pressed his advantage, Zara found her opening. With a burst of speed, she drove her blade into the core of his cybernetic arm, disabling it. Krylos roared in pain, but before he could recover, Eli delivered the finishing blow, a perfectly aimed shot to his exposed side. Krylos fell, his massive form crashing to the ground. The remaining Syndicate forces, seeing their leader defeated, began to retreat. The battle was over. As the dust settled, Teralis emerged from his cover, his expression one of reluctant respect. "You've proven yourselves formidable, but this conflict isn't sustainable. The Council will demand an explanation." Eli stepped forward, his voice firm. "You can tell them this. Zara and I aren't going anywhere. This ranch is our home, and our child is ours to raise. If they want to challenge that, they'll have to come through us. Teralis studied him for a long moment before nodding. Very well, I will convey your message. That evening, as the stars lit up the Dustarian sky, Eli and Zara sat on the porch, their hands entwined. The battle had left them battered but victorious, and for the first time in weeks, they allowed themselves to breathe. That evening, as the stars lit up the Dustarian sky, Eli and Zara sat on the porch, their hands entwined. The battle had left them battered but victorious, and for the first time in weeks, they allowed themselves to breathe. We did it, Zara said softly, her head resting on Eli's shoulder. He nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Yeah, but it's not over, she smiled faintly. No, it's not, but whatever comes, we'll face it together. Eli pressed a kiss to her temple, his voice filled with quiet determination. Damn right we will. As the night deepened, the ranch stood as a beacon of hope and defiance, its defenders united by love, resilience, and the promise of a future worth fighting for.